Everybody, welcome to my series on Nest.js and Next.js. We're gonna build a full stack web application. I'm gonna build a clone of this application. I was using Pomodoro app from the last 2 to 3 years. Recently, I explored this website. I'm using this website. So I thought, why don't I build a clone of this website? You can start the timer for 20 minutes. You can stop the Pomodoro session. You can see after 20 minutes, you can have a 5 minutes break. When you complete 4 Pomodoro sessions, you will get a long break. You can also customize the focus level. You can do 40 minutes or 60 minutes and then take a break, this type of stuff. I will also implement the sound related feature or notification. You can also restart the session, stuff like that. For the backend architecture, we're gonna follow NestJS with Postgres database and TypeORM ORM. And for frontend, I'm gonna use the Next.js. Backend structure, I'm gonna break my Pomodoro type application into Nest.js multiple modules. Each module will have its own controller, service, and validator, and each module will have its own repository. Let's say each module will have its own repository like Pomodoro session repository, and each will have its own service. I can say service, controller, and model, or you can say entity. I can say entity. So this is our high level diagram or module structure. I will have authentication module or user module. User module will have its own user controller and user service. I will have auth related module, and then I will have the task. If you look at here, I will have a task. You can assign a specific task to the Pomodoro session. I will break down this feature into a task module. This one will also have its own controller, service, and entity. I will also have a separate module for notification. You will have service, controller, and the entity. In the next video, we're gonna create our first Nest.js application. We're gonna set up the whole application. First Nest.js application, if you don't have Nest.js CLI globally, you should install Nest.js CLI globally on your machine. I can say that Nest. Let me find it out. Nest.js CLI. Yes, this one. I've already installed this one, Nest CLI. npm install -g @ nestjs/cli. Now I need to create a new project. I can say Pomodoro production level, because I'm gonna publish this source code to my GitHub. So that's why I call the Pomodoro Nest prod. You can choose any name. Yes, I would like to use npm. It's gonna install packages for me. Let's see. You can see that my project has been installed or created. Let me go to this directory, Pomodoro. Let's do that here. Pomodoro Nest prod. I can start my project by using npm run start. The project will be running on port 3000. You can see that my project has been started. I can go to the localhost :3000. You can see the hello world. I can open that project into my VS Code editor. Instead of hello world, let's change something. I can say that hello world, I want to change it here, service.getHello. You can change the message at the get hello. When you go to the root route, this method will be executed and you have a hello method. I can say that welcome to my Pomodoro app. I want to run the project into watch mode. There is a script npm run start def. You can find that from the package.json file, npm run start def. If you have worked in Node.js or Express-based application, you basically install Nodemon. Nodemon does auto reloading for you. This is the same stuff here. Now I can see welcome to my Pomodoro application, right? So we have set up our basic application hello world with Nest.js. Maybe you are thinking, how will I structure the authentication part? How will you structure as a Nest.js developer for authentication? Do you need separate module for authentication? Maybe you have a question. Yes, you need separate module for authentication. We're going to create a new module. I'm going to name it to auth. This auth module will handle the authentication. We will define register route, login route, and profile route. This is called the sign up. This is login, and this is profile is used to get the authenticated user profile. We will have the service. This controller will talk to authentication service. This controller will be dependent on authentication service. Authentication service will have register, login, and get profile method. We're gonna call this method to register endpoint, login method to login endpoint. In authentication service will be dependent on TypeORM type repository based on our user entity. This is called dependency injection here. Like auth service is dependent on TypeORM repository. Under the hood, TypeORM repository will be injected to auth service, and our TypeORM repository will talk to PostgreSDB. Basically, we will have the table here, and TypeORM repository provide CRUD operations to interact with users table, right? I'm gonna create a new branch for, I can say, auth. Let's create a new authentication module. You can use NestJS CLI to generate a new module. I can say auth. A new authentication module has created. It has also imported here in our app module, which is our root module. Now we need to generate controller. We also need to generate authentication service. So we have auth controller in the auth service. It has also imported the auth controller here in the auth module and auth service in the auth module. So these providers are called dependency injection. You will define all of the routes in controller, and you will define all of the register, login, and profile routes here. This is the auth is a base URL for authentication. Can you define the register route in auth controller? You can use the documentation or you can research how to create route in Nest.js. I want you to create a new register route. All right, let me do that for you. Register will be the post endpoint. If you are not sure about HTTP methods and verbs, you have to look it up. I can say HTTP methods. You can find that. Post is used to send the data to the server or update a resource. This is commonly used to submit a form data or upload a file. Get is used to retrieve the data from the server, right? Put is used to update the data. Patch is also used to update the resource. Delete is used to remove the data. Public REST API. Let me find that. If you are not sure about these endpoints, I can show you with the help of public APIs. Let's look at that. Which one I should show? Animals, or I think there is an IMDb. I think there is a weather. Yeah, weather stack also have. So these are all the examples related to pet. Let's look at that. Here you will see this is the product API. All of them are get endpoint. It's gonna give me the results. It's gonna give me the data. What if I post? I think I could not find any post endpoint. So what should I do? So you basically use post endpoint for save a new record in the database. Let's use create register endpoint. I can create the function. I'm gonna make it async function. It's gonna return the promise with a simple string user registration endpoint. Let's run the application. Let me test that. So we have created the route /auth/register. I can use the postman to send the API request. Let me close everything. I'm using the postman. You can download the postman if you don't have. This is used to test the APIs, REST APIs and GraphQL. I'm gonna send the post request. On every application you will saw on web application, when user submits the form, it's gonna call post or put API endpoint. My application is running on port 3000. So I can say that /auth/register. This one is my route. This is the base URL. This is the route URL register. What if I send the post request to this one? It's gonna give me the result user registration endpoint. What if I send the get request? I did not define the route. It's gonna give me the error, hey, you don't have any route. So you can also send the JSON message user registered successfully, but we are returning the string, so I changed the return type. Now you should see the message, user registered successfully. Now I would like to use the auth service register method. We did not define that. Here you're gonna learn how to do dependency injection in Nest.js. I'm gonna inject the instance of the auth service. Let's call that method. I can say this dot auth service dot register. We don't have that method. Let's create that. It's gonna create auth service register method in the auth service and return message user registered successfully, and you should see the same response, user registered successfully. This is how you do dependency injection. In the auth module, we have registered the auth service as a provider. It means you can inject into the auth controller, just like I have done that. Do you know how to get the data from the request body in Nest.js and receive it here in the auth controller and pass that payload or request body to auth service dot register method? There is a concept of data transfer object in Nest.js. We're gonna use that. Let's say I would like to provide the body by selecting the raw JSON. I want to provide the email jane@gmail.com. I also would like to provide the password. Let's say that. I also want to provide first name Jane. I also want to provide the last name. Now my question is, how can I receive this request body in Nest.js? Nest.js has the concept of data transfer object. We also need to add the validation. Make sure the email should be valid email, or the length of the password, or the type should be string, stuff like that. I'm gonna use the DTO folder. Let's create that. Let's create a new DTO. I'm gonna call it create user.dto.ts file. To implement validation, we need another package. It's called class validator, but I don't have class validator. Let's install it. It will help me to add the validation. Is email minimum length, and yes, that's it. I don't have username. What I have: email, password, first name, last name. This one is also a string. If you want to make it optional, you gotta write the is optional. If it is required, I can use the is not empty. It should not be empty, or I think by default it will work that. We will test that. This is how you will add the validation by using the decorator. I'm decorating this field and telling to Nest.js the type should be string. The first name type should be string. The minimum length of the password is 6. I use the decorator. Nest.js heavily use the decorator. We install the class validator. Why it is giving me the error? Oh, now it fixed now. So our next goal is to parse this request body. We defined the same structure here into create user DDO, email, password, first name and last name, right? Now we need to get that. Here you can use the body decorator, right? Body decorator. And you need to use the create user DTO. That is it. Let's import that. Create user DTO. I'm gonna pass this create user DTO here. Make sure you accept that here in the register method. Call it create user DTO and the type should be create user DTO. Now I should return that. I can say that promise it should return a user. Or promise. Actually, let's get rid of this one first. Let's test it the simple way. Now I should run the application. Was not provided. Argument was not provided. Auth service. Oh, I did not save that. It should not be a string. Create user DTO. Let's try to test that out. So I got the exact body. Let's say I'm providing the invalid email, but it is not working. It should throw the validation error. One thing, you need to activate your validation in your app module in your main.ts file. You should register your validation pipe. You can also register on the controller level, like you can also use pipe here, but I would love to do with globally. In main.ts file, you can enable your validation pipe. I can say that validation pipe app.use global pipes. Global pipes and my new validation pipe. You have to provide the instance of validation pipe. That is it. Now, what is class transformer package is missing? Oh, we need to install another package. npm I class transformer, because class transformer and class validator both works together. Let's run the application. And now you should see the validation. Email must be an email. Let's provide the valid email. Now I got that. If I did not provide the password must be longer or equal to 6 character and it must be a string. So what if I not provide the Jane? First name must be a string. It's gonna give me the value. You must need to provide the first name, last name, all of them are required. So far we have learned how to parse the request body by using the DTO data transfer object. You have learned how to add the validation against request body. First of all, I would like to change the spelling of my auth service. I wrote auth service, it should be auth service. Let me rename that auth service. So I've changed the name of my service. First of all, I would like to encrypt the user password. I don't want to save the user password in plain text format. I would like to save the user password in encrypted format. In the next video, I'll teach you more about JSON Web Token. So we need external library to encrypt the user password. Let's install the bcyrpt library. Let me import the bcrypt library first. Bcrypt library has hash method. We can use that method to encrypt the user password. There are two ways to encrypt password by using bcrypt library. This is a synchronous method, hash sync. Another one is simple hash, which was asynchronous method. We have to use the asynchronous method, hash. Make sure I use the async keyword with register method. Now I should be able to apply await expression. The second argument is a salt round. It should be a 10. It's an algorithm number. You should not be worried about that. And I've set the user password to create user dto.password. Now our next logic is to save the user into the database. Right now we don't have any entity yet. Now we're gonna set up Postgres with TypeORM. We would like to save the user to the database, but we did not set up the database connection yet. Let's do that. I'm gonna install a couple of packages. The first package we need PG, Postgres, and we need NestJS TypeORM. Let's install these two packages. We also need to install separate TypeORM. My TypeORM has installed. Now we need to configure the TypeORM in my app module. Let's register the TypeORM module here. I can use the async method. Make sure you import the TypeORM. Let's import that from TypeORM module / nest @NestJS /TypeORM. There is a method for root async to initialize the TypeORM. Basically, we will not write SQL statements like insert into, update into, or TypeORM will handle all of that. TypeORM will provide methods to us. Let me show you with the help of examples. So you can consider that this is TypeORM, and here is our exact database. The database, this should be a Postgres database. We will have a users table here. These are all the columns: ID, email, and the password, let's say. So TypeORM will provide methods to interact with tables. We will not write queries. TypeORM will write queries for us. Here, queries. TypeORM will write queries for us. Our service or user service will interact to this TypeORM repository with the help of repository. Yeah, this should be our service. That's the main flow behind TypeORM. Let's import ConfigModule here. We did not install the config module. Please install that. We will define configuration like database name, host name, port name into our env file, configuration file. Let's import the config module. This is how you will create dynamic module. We're gonna register this as a dynamic module. That's why we need to use another method which is called the factory method, use factory. Yeah. The type is Postgres. We did not define the env yet. Let's get the config service, because I will get the file or configurations environment variables from config service. What I can do, I can write database name, database host, config.get db database host, db host. We also need a db port, config.get db port, right? We need a username. I can copy that. It should be database user, you can say that. DB username, let's paste DB password. Let's paste DB name. Here you should provide the entity, all of your entities. We don't have any entity yet. Let's comment this code. Synchronize means whenever you run your application, it will synchronize the entities to table. Let's say if you have registered 2 more entities, let's say session or whatever notification, I have created tables. Let's say this synchronize will create the table for session, notification, post and comment. That is why they set the synchronize to true. Our next step is to inject the config service. Please get these properties from config service. We did not set the config service. Yes, don't worry, we will do that. It should be TypeORM module. So everything is good to go now. Now we have to set up the env, db post, db host, db port, db username. We have injected the config service. So this config service will read the configuration from the env. Let's define that env. So we need db host, localhost, port 5434, db username, postgres. You can choose any username and password. DB database Pomodoro prod, JWT secret. I am not using any of these right now. Let's do that. DB host, make sure the keys are same. DB port, DB username, DB password, DB name. So this config, we imported the config module. So this config service can read these configuration. That is why we installed config module. Nest.js under the hood is reading the configurations or environment variables from env. Now we need to test that. I'm sure you will get the error because we did not start the Postgres server. We have to install it, or we're gonna use Docker. I will use the Docker to install the Postgres service, but I want to show you the error. Cannot read properties, get undefined, use factory. Let's fix this issue quickly. Cannot read property, undefined get. I'm getting error from here. Config.get is not working because I used capital I. It should be small I. One more thing I noticed, I should place that outside of my use factory. Let's place the inject outside of the use factory. Now everything is fine. Auth module initialized, config modules dependencies initialized, unable to connect to database. If you don't have a Docker, I want you to install the Docker. I have already running. My Docker is running on my machine, and I have Redis and Postgres image. How can you start the Docker container? Let's create a new Docker compose file. First of all, I will write the version. and then define the services. Do I want Postgres? Do you want MongoDB? Do you want Redis? You will place all of them into the services section. Let's say I want Postgres. That is it. So it has created the Postgres service for me. This was the image I'm gonna use. Let's use the Postgres 14. I'm gonna use the Postgres 14, and container name should be the Postgres, or if you want you can use a different name for the container. Let's go with Postgres. This is my username. I can find that, verify that this is my username, this is my password. These are all the environment configuration settings for Postgres. We have a database name. This one is that. By default, Postgres run on 5432. Please map my port with Docker container port. Volume is used to store the data. Like where do you want to store Postgres tables, users table or sessions table? All of them will be stored here inside the varlib Postgres SQL data directory. One more thing, I want to add a network. Let's create a new network. And I should also need to add a network here, net. Now you can run your Docker compose file by using docker compose up. Please remove it to avoid the confusion. What is this? Because I did not define the volume here, that is why I have added the volume. The name of the volume is pg data. Now I can run docker compose up. What is going on? Actually, I should stop everything. Now let's run that. Here you can see my Postgres server has started. Server started, create database, all of these things are done now. Let's start our application. It should be connected with Postgres, but I got the error. Client password must be a string. Postgres and Postgres. Postgres and Postgres. Fix this issue. I think it's not config service, it's not working. I think we are not getting value from here, from this config. What I can do, let's log the config service. It's a function, so I can return that. Let's fix that. It should add the default value. If we did not set the DB port, it's gonna set the 54322. What I wanna do, let's try to log that. .log. Let's look at all of these values. You got undefined. Host is undefined, port, username, database is undefined. I think we did not initialize the config module here. Let's set up that. Now you can see localhost 5432, Postgres and Pomodoro. And our application is also successfully connected to Postgres. Let's comment this out. Let's keep it by using this syntax. Now we're gonna move forward to our user entity. We would like to save the record in our users table. I will create a separate users module, and this user module will have a user service and a user entity. User service will have create, find by email, find by ID, and update profile method. Here you will define your entity in the form of decorator. It's nothing more, it's just a JavaScript or TypeScript object. This object will be converted to users table. Let's do that. I want you to create a new folder. Actually, we need to create a new module. I can say nest generate module. I will say users. Let's also create a new service. Let's create a new entity. I can create a new folder entities. I will call it user.entity.ts. Let's define the entity. This entity will be converted to Postgres users table. I can say user. Let's define the entity. And this is the name of the table. By default, it will select the user. Now we need to define a couple of property. The first one is primary generated column. I want to increment the ID by default. The second property, let's add email. I think we have email. This one is the column. Email should be unique. Email string, right? The next one is I would like to add the password. The type of the password field or column, which is string. We also need to add a column for first name, actually. First name and last name. Let's do that for last name, right? So we have created the our first entity. And this will be mapped into Postgres users collection, users table. One more thing, you notice that I did not synchronize the users entity. Synchronize auto reload entities. Let me find out that exact entities. It will automatically reload. Entities will be loaded automatically. Let's configure, let's use this pattern. We have created the user entity. Now it's time to use the entity. To use the entity, we need repository. TypeORM provides repository to interact with entity. TypeORM provide repository to interact with entity. This should be an entity, right? Entity. So I can inject the entity, right? Let's inject that. There is a decorator to inject the repository. The name is user. Make sure you import the entity user, and we also need to get a user here. The type should be user, and it's gonna return a promise with user. Yeah, it's gonna create the user. User repository has a create method. It's gonna instantiate the user object, and finally we need to save the user into the repository. This will save the record in users table, in Postgres users table. Let's remove the extra code. So now our goal is to use the user service inside the auth service. Our goal is to use here the user service here. Let's inject the user service. Let's import that. I'm using the auth user service inside the auth service. So I need to import the auth users module here. So it will allow me to use user service, user module. Import that. Now I want to call the user service.create method. Let's do that. Yeah, create user and return the message. What is that? Create user DTO. I think we can use the same format here. In the users, I can say create user DTO. It's gonna return this one. Let's run the application. Is missing the field, is missing the following properties: email, password, and the first name. Inside the, oh, we did not import the repository. Message string is missing missing the following properties: create user DTO, email, password, first name, and the last name. Returning the message. I should not return this one. Actually, we should call that. What is the issue? Potential solution. Nest can't resolve dependency of user service. Please make sure that argument user repository as the user module context. We imported the user module, but we should tell the user module other modules want to use the user service, so please export that. Oh, it's a repository, user repository issue. So we need to import the entity. So I want to use that TypeORM module dot for feature in user entity. This will allow me to use the repository. So everything is good now, because we in the user service we are injecting the user repository, but we did not tell the TypeORM or NestJS application I want to use the user entity in this module. Now we need to test that by using the postman. We're gonna send the register request. This is amazing. We successfully created the email, password, first name and last name. But did you notice that I don't want to send the password back to the response? We need to implement JSON Web Token. Let's understand how JSON Web Token work. First of all, let's ask this question. Maybe you have a question. What is JSON Web Token? This is the structure of JSON Web Token: encrypted format string. JSON Web Token has three parts: header, payload, and the secret. We can store the user ID or user email in the payload. So JSON Web Token is used to exchange information in REST APIs. When user logged in, we don't want to send the password back to the client. We need to send the encrypted format, some token, some string, so other users or any user on the internet cannot see the password of the user. This is the flow of JSON Web Token. Client send the login request from your browser or from mobile application, and server generates a JWT token, and client stores the local storage. Client stores the token in local storage, in browser local storage. Then client sends the token to access the private route. Let's say he want to update his profile. He will provide the token into the header. He will make the profile API request. He must need to provide the authorization token in the authorization header. Then server verifies the token, and then it will give the access. The third part is the secret, which is very crucial. And the server can decrypt the token by using this secret, and it can decrypt the user payload from the JWT token. In our application, we don't want to send the exact what I can say user. You can return JSON Web Token. Some people return JSON Web Token from the log, from the sign up. We can return the JSON Web Token here. with this email. Let's change different email. Now I can see the token. Our register endpoint is working successfully. We're going to implement the login route. I want you to create a new route in the auth controller. I'm going to copy register route and let's rename it to login. It should give me the, I'm going to call the login method from the auth service. We did not create it yet. We also need a login DTO. Login DTO. And I'm going to provide that login DTO here. It will also return a token. Let's create the login DTO just like we did in the create user DTO. Let's create the login DTO. I want you to create a new file. Login.dto.ts. Login will have only two fields, email and the password. It should be a class, login DTO, email and the password. Let's implement the decorator here is email. I also need to do it is string. The password is string. Minimum length is 6. You can also copy that from create user DTO, these two. Now we need to use the login DTO here. Actually, we need to import that. Let's create a new method in the auth service. First of all, we need to find the user by email. You can say const user find by email. If there is no user, we can send the invalid credential. We can say Nest.js also provides some built-in exceptions. I can say invalid credentials. If everything is fine, we need to send the Json Web Token. I can use the same code, this one, and call it here. Let's fix that. I did not have, I think, find by email in the user service. Actually, I have that find user by email. Let's copy that in the auth service. Say find user by email. Now we need to write the logic to find the user based on email. User repository where clause, and this is how you will query on the user entity. I provided the where clause. Please match the user based on email, and it's gonna return the user or null. Find user by email. What is going on here? ID does not exist on promise type user or null. Let's fix that. So we have created the login method in the auth service. First of all, we need to find the user based on email. If user found, then we need to send the JSON Web Token. Otherwise, we should send the error back. Let's try to test that. I'm gonna send the login request instead of register. I'm gonna create a new request. Let's send the login request. I should not provide the first name and the last name. I got the token. If I provide the invalid email, let's see what is going to happen. Invalid credentials, right? Let's provide the invalid password. Invalid. Oh. I think I did not check the password validation for the login. I forgot that. Add the check for password. If password does not match here, if password user does not exist or password is incorrect, we should throw the error back. Let's remove that. There is a compare method in the bcyrpt library. Just like for the hashing, this one is used for compare password. The compare password will take two arguments. The first one is our plain text password, which we received from Postman, this one. The first argument is this one. And the second argument is our encrypted password. If both password matched, then it should continue. Otherwise, it's gonna return this error. Let's continue. I'm going to test with this email. We were doing on this email. This is a correct password. Let's test with correct password. Now I'm gonna provide the invalid password. You should see the error. What is going on? I think I did not save the application. Now I should get the invalid credential, unauthorized. So you gotta use the compare method. Let's say user wants to access his profile. User want to see his email, first name, last name, or maybe he wants to change the password. In our application, we will have a profile route. Let's say a user has logged in. Now we saved a token on the front end side. Then for the get profile request, a user must need to provide the authorization token in the authorization header. He will provide the token in the header. So we need to access this profile or get the profile from the DB. We're gonna implement that. First of all, I should create a new route profile. It should profile. I can say profile. Here I will have a method get user by ID or get user by email, find user by email. Find user, let me get that. Find user by email, yes. From the user service, not the auth service. I need to use the user service. In the auth module, yes, we are using the user module. Actually, we can define that in the auth service. Let's open the auth service. We have register and login, or I can inject directly auth service, user service. Let's this dot user service dot find user by email. Here I can provide the email request dot user dot email, but we need request. We need to get request here. Don't worry, I'll explain what is going on here. I should get the request from NestJS common. This should be request decorator request dot. That looks good. So I can get the request dot user. Here I can return the user, email, and the password. Actually, we don't need to return the password. We can return email. We can return email right now. Return email and the user dot email. So this is the protected route, this profile route. As I explained here, we need to apply authentication here. In NestJS, NestJS supports the guard concept, use guard. And I'm gonna provide the auth guard because we are using the passport. Passport provides the JWT guard. JWT guard to protect this route. We applied this. What NestJS will do under the hood, it's gonna call this method, this one, validate method. I can also show you with the help of debugging. I would like to launch the application, start dev, right? Let's run the application. I'm gonna debug the application. My debugger has been started. Let's see what will happen. I'm gonna put breakpoint here, and I'm gonna put also breakpoint here. So let's send the profile request. We need a token, right? Because we will provide the token in the authorization header. So I got the token, create a new route. It should be profile route. It's a get request. Let's provide the authorization as a barrier token, and I can provide my token here. Make sure 3000, not 3001. Cannot get request profile. Auth / profile. It's a get request, not a post request. Make sure you import the get. Let's see. The application has stopped at this breakpoint, right? First of all, it has applied the use guard. The auth guard executed this JWT strategy, the validate method. In the validate method, it has decrypted the token, just like I mentioned in starting JWT.io. When you go to the website, JSON Web Token has three parts. I think yeah, this one. This is the payload. It has decrypted this payload, right? You will have expiry date, the ID of the user, and the email. When you look at the user service, actually the auth service, where we created the token, this one, we saved the ID and the email while creating the token. This one was payload, so we encrypted the payload in the JSON Web Token. Here my application decrypted the token. I got the ID and I got the email. So next it's gonna call the profile method in the auth controller. It's gonna call the profile method, this one. Everything is fine now. So this payload has stored as a request.user. Request.user, you will see that request.user. This payload decrypted has stored as a request.user. And we got the email. A user will be found, and you should see a user back janeemail.com. That was the overall flow of passport strategy. This one is extracting the token from barrier token, just like I provided here. This token in the authorization header barrier token, this one is extracting the token. What if I place the breakpoint here? What will happen? Yeah, this setup done on the when we restart the application. Let's see that. Actually, we need to restart from here. I've put the breakpoint here. Yeah, you can see it has executed this one. It got the JWT strategy when our module has been initialized. This one in the auth module, JWT module, this constructor run. Yeah, it got the JWT secret, and we have called the super constructor of passport strategy. This one is extending the JWT strategy. Our application is running now. It's gonna call the validate method, and then it's gonna call this one, and that is going. This is the flow of passport strategy. I hope you understood it.